Margaret English, did you turn it on?
Yep.
We're ready to go. Okay, Margaret English, our current chair and a lady of many accomplishments.
So I went to Shields the other day, and apropos of nothing, some guy comes up to me and said, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "I wouldn't call myself that." And he said, "Well, do you believe in God?" And I thought, get rid of this guy. What's he doing in Shields asking strangers whether they're Christians or not? But it tells me that we are surrounded by people who would like everybody to be Christians. And if you don't claim that for your belief system, you are persona non grata. I was afraid of what he would say if I said no. And I didn't have time to explain to him that, you know, there are ways in which I am a Christian, but there are ways in which I am not. So face it, if you're not a Bible-believing, white evangelical Christian, you may not be considered Christian. And that's a problem for us. All around us, we see these same people trying to limit people's freedom in the name of becoming a more Christian country. Things like abolishing abortion, not allowing gender transitions, basically changing the whole curriculum in schools to fit their view of slavery, Black Lives Matter, things like that. And also trying to change history in terms of what the founding fathers, who were, quote, Christians in their minds, believed. Most of those Christians were basically deists who did not believe that they were saved by Christ. So I don't know if the evangelicals would consider the Christians under that particular definition. In some ways, I feel like this is the coming of the Dark Ages in America. They're trying to suppress anything that does not agree with their point of view. I don't know about you, but I feel like that nervousness is hiding my true opinions. I don't want to necessarily, when that guy asked me that question, I didn't necessarily want to answer him because I didn't know what the response would be. So the one place that I feel like I can be comfortable about saying what I think and what I believe is Unitarian. Boof. Unitarian Universalism. So I really feel like we are not alone in this. There are other people in our community that probably feel the same way and that would appreciate a place where their values and their beliefs could be respected. So I've observed in our discussions this past year that a lot of people in the group are what humanists often claim. They're atheists. You know, I did say to this guy, yeah, I believe in God, but don't call me a Christian, right? Because it might not fit his belief. But I realized, and I think for Jennifer, who finally decided she needed to go to a different church, she couldn't be part of a group where atheism was the way people believed. I don't agree that we are strict fundamentalist atheists in this group. I don't think we demand that from people. I think we're very open to feeling like we don't know, but we find certain beliefs helpful to us. When I was watching a movie recently, how many of you have seen A Man Called Otto? I know Catherine has, John has, okay. It's a good movie, it's very touching. It's about a guy who just retired. He feels like his life is not worth living. He's trying to commit suicide, but it always fails because he lives in this condo community where people keep interrupting him and asking him for things and, inviting him to dinner and things like that. And I thought, I sort of related to that through the whole movie in terms of this group, It would be easy to say, there's no sense for our being here anymore. Our purpose is ending. But I realized it was the openness of the neighbors that gave him a reason for living, especially this one Latina who was always fixing him food to eat and inviting him for dinner and saying, can you watch our child, and things like that. And she was always including him in things. And I thought, that's really the secret, is for people to be open to one another and to be good, provide hospitality to people. So it helped me see a larger view that encompasses many more needs that I think we can fulfill in this conservative state. We were so happy when I know last year at our annual meeting I said, if we don't get more young people in here, we're gonna die. And so the ones that have stuck by us are the birds and the beans. It's like the birds and the bees, right? It's pretty essential. And they have both said one of the reasons they came here is they were looking for a community of liberal-minded people. I think that's really what is out there. People want a community. I know for the Burns, they grew up in a really vital community, the LDSers, but the beliefs were not something that they could adhere to. And one of the things I always say when I go out and talk about Unitarians is, we really aren't united by beliefs, we're united by values, the things we value, and those are the principles. And our values, we acknowledge, may come from a Judeo-Christian religion, but they are not necessarily the kind of beliefs. We don't, we want the values, but we don't necessarily make people believe certain things. The other thing is we don't have a canon. I don't know if you know what a canon is, but it's the Bible, it's the Torah, it's the Quran. It's something that people have from ancient times that they've referred to for all their decisions. And we really don't have that. You may have your own canon. I have certain books that for me are my canon. I go back to them and refer to them in terms of the values I have and what I feel is important. So, so there are many reasons I think we need to maintain a place here in this community. When I was getting my master's degree in religious studies at Gonzaga, of all places, one of the things I was really noticing, and I am kind of a aficionado of religions, I'm interested in them. Having grown up as a PK, I just think it's part of my identity. But I noticed that one of the trends in Christian churches now, especially Protestant churches, is to not identify their denominational reference. Partly because people have an aversion these days towards having to be pushed into certain kinds of beliefs. And so I know young people especially are not joiners the way they used to be, the way we used to be. The Elks is closing, the Knights of Columbus is closed. A lot of groups have been closed, and people are not as willing to fit in to certain systems as they used to be. So if you go to Faith Chapel, there is not a cross in Faith Chapel. Now, it is probably the largest Christian church in this town, but there is no cross at the front of the church, which is why they can have symphonies there with no problem. And I forgot to bring my cough drops. Anyway, that's one of the trends also. don't identify yourself with symbols. So, as I'm thinking about broadening our reach in the community, I'm thinking, what could we call ourselves that wouldn't necessarily involve a symbol of any kind, but would attract people because we offer something that's new and different and where people can feel comfortable and be welcomed. I want you to think of the churches that you know of, and I'll list some of the ones I know of. There's the New Life Church, there's the Word of Life Church, oh, thank you so much. There's the Harvest Church, there's the Freedom Church, there's a Living Water Church, there's a Lifeway Church, and there's an Evidence Church, which ought to be our denomination, right? I don't see a lot of evidence going on. And there's a lot of non-denominational churches out there. So that's the fastest growing groups in America, really. Most people don't know that the Faith Chapel is a Foursquare denomination. It started as a Foursquare denomination. And the Foursquare are the things people have to believe, including faith healing. Now, have you ever heard a person who goes to Faith Chapel talk about faith healing as part of what they know? I think that's, in our day, that would have been considered, I don't want to go to a church that's that way. It's a Pentecostal church. But maybe, and it was started by Amy Semple McPherson. If you don't know who she is, she was a very well-known evangelist back in the 20s and 30s. So they try to hide those kinds of things. And, I think it's time for us to broaden our reach and start thinking about what does unite us, not necessarily what we identify with strongly. We've been talking about and meeting with the Humanists. Danny's been on our board, and he's the leader of the Humanists, and he thinks this is a good thing to aim for. They're going to start out by meeting in our fellowship hall. Their meeting times are later in the morning anyway. It's at 1 o'clock or 1:30 instead of during our time. So in April, he thinks he's going to have them start meeting here. Currently, they're meeting at the Congregational Church, but they're going to start meeting here after April. He also wants to see this as a place, and is already using us as a place where liberal groups politically and in many other ways can meet. And last night, we had a great party sponsored by him and Darcy, this trivia night, which included a lot of his people, his Democratic people that he knows, as well as us, as well as some of the Humanists, and as well as some that just kind of dropped by to see what was going on. And so it was fun. It was really fun. And I met some young people that I wouldn't have met otherwise, honestly. Because they're not coming here to go to church. They came for that particular activity, for fun. But they have in common this liberal bent, and they don't want to go someplace where that's not accepted. So, being sort of an amateur theologian, let's do a comparison between humanism, which is defined as a progressive philosophy of life that, without theism, and theism is the belief in God, and other supernatural beliefs, affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good. Can't we all agree on that? Anybody have any objection to that? I think that's our goal anyway. And that's the definition the American Humanists give. A joyous alternative to religions that believe in a supernatural God and life hereafter. Humanists believe that this is the only life of which we have certain knowledge, and that we owe it to ourselves and to others to make the best life possible for ourselves and all with whom we share this fragile planet. A belief that when people are free to think for themselves, using reason and knowledge as their tools, they are best able to solve the world's problems. This latter quote does open us up to making this a center for doing just that. Solving problems politically, generously, and joyously. I'm an agnostic myself. I don't really have a belief in anything that can't be proved. And I think most of us here are probably in that category also. When I gave a talk one time at a funeral and I said, Unitarians leave the idea of life after death unanswered, some guy came up to me and was very mad at me that I would basically say such a neutral thing. So there's another agnostic who says humanists view, this is a humanist, humanists view this natural world as wondrous and precious and as offering limitless opportunities for exploration, fascination, creativity, companionship, and joy. Because science cannot now and probably never will be able to explain the ultimate origin or destiny of the universe, I think humanists can include more than atheists and agnostics. The lack of definite answers to these ultimate questions leaves room for reasonable people to hypothesize about the origin of the natural universe and even to hope for some life beyond this one. Thomas Paine, who was one of the original colonial philosophers, believed in a deistic God, which is a God that started the world and made things run a certain way, but doesn't have any personal relationship with people. That's what a deist believes. And Robert Ingersoll, who is one of our well-known people, we had a guy here 40 years ago who used to quote him a lot, is an agnostic. Those beliefs do not interfere with the ability to lead outstanding humanistic lives. Thus, in my opinion, people holding such views can be humanists if they believe that humanity is on its own in this world and that the lack of any evidence for an afterlife means this life should be lived as though it's the only one we have. Which really puts the pressure on us in some ways, right? So we plan to start slowly reintegrating the humanists first into the building, okay, with the hope that we can continue to do some things together, socially and in terms of activities and activism. Danny is also working on using the building for other progressive groups to which he belongs. And I have to say, Danny's really trying to build a community of liberal people. The Democratic Social Club is meeting here, and last Sunday we had some previous members of that group that used to meet at the Art House on Sunday mornings. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. There was a group that met at the Art House, and Matt was their minister, so to speak, but apparently that group is not meeting anymore, so they came. So we are starting, and there was one guy last night who said, I looked at some of your stuff there, and I think this is something I could belong to. Now, whether he'll come or not is another issue, but we're getting the word out that we are welcoming people who may not even try us. If you know of other groups that want to use this facility for meetings, for activism, whatever, let us know and we'll see. Danny kind of uses it a lot because if you're a member of the group, you can use the place without having to pay any fee. Now, I think the humanists are going to contribute something to our budget right now, which is necessary at this point. So the other thing is that their meetings will be listed in the Valley Voice and in the What's Happening when it goes out after this, okay? So those are ways we're trying to get you to open up to maybe going to their service or their program. Theirs is mostly discussion. They don't have songs or chalice lightings or anything like that. So it's different, but if you want to go to theirs as well as ours, that's fine. For some of you, it can't come soon enough. I know for Joyce, who's missed the people from the past that went with that group, and you wonder why the transition isn't happening completely right away. It's because Danny feels like, because of some hard feelings from other times when those humanists kind of felt like they'd been kicked out, then he wants to do it slowly. And I am letting Danny handle their side of the whole thing, and all we can do is be as welcoming as possible. By attending some of their meetings, by having parties together and potlucks. We've had some great potlucks with them in this past year. So, so I think those are things we need to kind of take slowly and with Danny's initiation. This also includes advertising, and one of the things, unfortunately, that happened was our sign fell down. And so we could have had the chance to rename ourselves at that point, but we weren't in this process yet. We probably will need to rename ourselves, and we'll also need to post their meeting topics as well as our own. So I would love to have some volunteers come, and some creative volunteers who think about what would be a good name that is not denominational. Let's take a clue from those non-denominational groups and find a name that best says what we want to attract. A progressive meeting house. What can you think? Now, Danny has said, let's call it the U. People know us as the Unitarian Universalists. And so, or the unity is already taken. Many of us are not Unitarian. If you're Unitarian, it means you are a believer, you are theistic, you do believe in God, but you don't believe necessarily that Christ was put on earth to save us, right? Which is essential to Christianity. And a universalist, you believe all religions have some benefit. So, and I still believe that. I still believe it's important for our kids to learn about other religions and be open to some of those beliefs as well. So, one of the things that we need to do is pick a better name and do some changing that way. Probably not this year, but maybe in this coming year. And one of the things that, just finally, what I wanted to say was, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an interior decorator, okay? And so, at one point in my life, it's kind of like I also wanted to be an archaeologist, but I went on a dig and I decided, no, that's not for me. Sifting through dirt is not for me. But, yeah. But because I love decoration, I got a subscription to Architectural Digest. And I looked at those homes and I said, this is not realistic. This is $1 million homes. I don't want to have anything to do with this. But then I found this book called Use What You Have in terms of decorating. And I thought, this is it. It's how to hang pictures, it's how to, put the furniture around. You didn't have to change a thing except the way you did things, okay? It was fine to have what you had and just make better use of it. And that's kind of what I'm talking about today, is learning to use what we have. We have a building, we have some money, we need to, we have a piano, we have a great PA system, or whatever you want to call this. So it's kind of like, this is what we have, how can we use it better? So that there is a safe place for people who have liberal beliefs, and where we can grow as, you know, for the community's sake. So, thank you very much. They asked me to do something on how we intend to go, and that's how we intend to go. Keep your fingers crossed for the next element.
And she did not fail to be a provocative speaker. You keep, we had one other song, and the words are lovely to this. It's number 300. Jack will play the tune for us. It's both of these are